now got a set of campaigns that you know work really well. You've got a bunch of learnings on campaigns that may not have gone so well. How do you pull all of that together and then implement it into your strategy to propel you forward?
My recommendation is to start with a simple.
How do you tell the ad console what kind of demographic you're going for?
You don't need to do anything, basically. You just.
How long do you think it's going to be before the consumer just gets over-consumed with ads?
It's already happening, but we've got no. If you look at case studies like Japan, I read the other day a psychological explanation about why the ads on Japan are so crazy. They are on average.
Oh, jeez. Hello and welcome back to the next episode of the Seller's Journey podcast. Thank you for tuning in. I'm delighted to be joined back again by the wonderful Caesar from Optimads. Thanks for coming back, Caesar.
Thank you for having me again, Ant. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really well, thank you. Again, looking forward to kind of picking up where we left off the last episode. So just as a bit of a refresh, last time we spoke, we started to get into detail about the actual kind of strategy behind the ad and how you would go about getting started. If you were kind of a bit of a freshman and you just wanted to kind of go in and, begin experimenting with Google and Meta ads, what are the best things to do? We talked about, kind of lots of testing using kind of auto campaigns to generate lots of information, and then, making sure that you're creating fully kind of trackable campaigns so that you can see them from start all the way through to the end. And it was a really interesting episode, actually. If you've not heard that episode yet, make sure you go back and have a listen because it was a really good one. I learned a lot in that. So I guess now what I want to kind of talk about now is, as a part of that journey, we've gone from the start, we've created the campaigns, we've made them trackable so that we can really kind of get into the analytics and see what's performing and what's not. What's the kind of next step? What's the logical next step to, you've now got a set of campaigns that you know work really well. You've got a bunch of learnings on campaigns that may not have gone so well. How do you kind of pull all of that together and then implement it into your strategy to, kind of propel you forward?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the first thing, obviously, is decide what the budget you're going to be allocating is. The minimum rule we usually recommend to do at least between $10 to $20 a day on any platform. It depends on your audience, of course. Like there is some clicks or some industries that it's really, really expensive every single click that you get. But it depends on the industry. But as a general rule of thumb, it's like $10 to $20 a day minimum. So there is no a single path because it depends heavily on your industry. For example, we know that beauty and fashion is going to be heavily relying on Meta, while other industries will rely a little bit more on Google. But if you have to ask me for general terms, for most cases, my recommendation is to start with a simple search campaign on Google. So thing is, that one is really easy to set up. You can set it up in less than 30 minutes. You could have a lot of control over what you're doing there, and you can get really good insight as well as a couple of conversions coming through because it is very easy for anybody to jump in and create a campaign like that one. Obviously, there's best practices and things that you could do to improve the performance of it, but I feel that the first thing that a seller should do is actually touch base on the ads and say, okay, I've got a sense that these could potentially work for my business. And then when they see that it's actually working for them, they can transition into different kind of campaigns. You would see that in the market, there is loads of e-commerce stores that they rely only on shopping campaigns. Because obviously they do perform better in some cases. They have a display component to it, so you can showcase the picture of your product. You can insert tags like the items on sale. There's a price tag on it, so if your price is competitive, then obviously it's an additional bonus for you. And you can direct people to a product page. So there's many benefits from it. However, the reason why I do not recommend it from the get-go, from the start, is just because shopping campaigns, they do have a technical component to it, which is the feed. So it's basically your product feed automatically feeds the campaign. So everything in the feed should be optimized with SEO techniques and everything. So that's why it requires a little bit more of knowledge, while in the search campaign, all you need is to have like really captivating headlines and descriptions and maybe a couple of site links, and that's it. So I think the first thing is test out for you that it actually can be something that works for you, and then move into further stages. So first, the search campaign. Once you're happy with it, transition to shopping. Once you're happy with both and you get between 30 to 50 conversions from that account, you can transition into something a little bit more AI based, like Performance Max. But we require a minimum of conversions because the platform works best. The more information you feed it with, the better it performs for you. So it's just like a journey for them in terms of Google Ads. And in terms of Meta, it will be similar. So our recommendation is always test first real ads, then do a multiple placement ones, and then just experiment out with Advantage Plus one. So you've got split tests of all of them, but it's an actual journey so you can see what's the effect of it. And at the end of the day, you could see that for your market, probably search ended up being the most productive. You never know until you test them out. But chances are Performance Max is going to work amazingly well for you, but you have to feed the platform first with good information, as well as Advantage Plus.
Got it. So kind of phase one is, in Amazon terms, would be kind of getting impressions and getting your product in front of people so that people can see it. And then I guess what you're saying is this next phase is really about kind of dialing in and getting people to not only click on your product, but then engage in it at the same time as well.
Yes. So from the start in Google, you're going to get conversions. If your product is competitive and your ads are well structured, you're going to get conversions. So it's not like we're just collecting clicks with something. Like you're going to get sales over the table. Probably not as many at first. For example, you target saying, let's say the United Kingdom, and you've got a budget of £10 a day, for example, and you are bidding for a keyword like knives or kitchen lights. So let's say that there is 6,000 searches for that keyword a month, but the cost per click is, let's say, £1.50. So that means you're going to get less than 10 clicks a day for the budget that you've got. So there's things that you could do to optimize, like you can bid for keywords that are less competitive. So the cost per click is usually cheaper, but they do still give you conversions. So there's many things that you can do, but it doesn't mean that you just feed it with impressions and then you start converting. No, it means that you are telling the platform that your goal is to generate conversions to actually get sales. And then what the platform is going to do is try to find new people that usually performs in a way that you're telling to. So people that has interest in knives or in kitchen appliances, whatever it is, and then that they usually have a behavior of purchasing based on ads, so that they usually historically have performed purchases online. So there is multiple components that they analyze, but obviously with less than 10 clicks a day, it's very little information what you can feed to the platform. But still this is done. So that's why I suggested first with search, because you have full control over the keywords specifically. So you can make sure that every click is relevant for you.
I kind of understand the search element. So basically you're bidding on terms that people are searching for specifically within Google, and you want to kind of appear on the front page. With this next kind of thing that you're talking about, how does that appear to the general consumer?
So shopping, for example, is when you look at Google, for example, anywhere in Google, you search for headphones, and then in the first results, just above the actual search results, you see a couple like of icons, like it's like a widget with multiple images and with a price tag and those things. That's a shopping campaign. That's how you showed up for the user. And then the next phase is Performance Max, which is basically, it does a combination of all the networks that Google owns, and based on your individual behavior, is going to send you certain types of ads. For example, I'm selling knives, right? Or headphones. I'm selling headphones. And then you look in Google for headphones. So you are interested in headphones. But I know as Google, so Google recognized that you traditionally have purchased subscriptions from a link in YouTube that you don't usually click on banners in the websites. Click sometimes on shopping, but you prefer to click more on search. So identifying those signals is going to show you YouTube ads, search ads, maybe a little bit of shopping ads. So based on individual patterns, it's going to identify what resonates based on your behavior. So it's individually targeted to audiences. So it's like a multi-platform approach, but you need data for that before you do, because you're telling them, I created this campaign, I've got this many assets. So obviously first, remember the budget's got to be split into those assets. So sometimes it could be split too thin in between them. And secondly, we need to know exactly what your end user is and tell the platform that. So that's why we recommend before set it growing up by creating search, shopping, and then transition into something like this.
How do you tell the ad console what kind of demographic you're going for? Is that something that you would kind of fill in whilst you created the ad? And then how does Google kind of then select the people that it's going to put this ad in front of? I think I understand how it's displayed. So if I'm the sort of person that engages with a YouTube video, then it'll come to me in that kind of format. I mean, it's crazy clever, but I think my question is like, what information do we need to kind of input to make sure that that is getting to that person?
You don't need to do anything, basically. You just create an audience on the ads. So when you're creating the ads, you said, what's your target audience? You said males between 25 to 45 living in the UK. Just living in the UK, because you could also target people with interest on it. So if travel agency, for example, you might as well want to target people that has interest in the country as well. But if you're selling products, then you just put like people living with presence on that target audience location. Then just select it. There's a couple of ways to target things out. So one, with keywords, the keyword that the person has to type in Google to prompt on results, or in YouTube. And the other one is based on interest. So there's a couple of auto-populated audiences. So Google has identified or has put you into. So for example, they might have identified you as a person who's a music lover. So you are part of that category. So your profile is tagged as that category. So whenever I create an ad, Google knows that you could potentially be one of my end users. Whenever they match your time logged into the platforms like Google or YouTube on there and my bidding, then my ad is going to be shown in front of you in the best way possible, basically.
Cool. So it's really clever. So basically then Google will almost create me a bespoke profile, if you like, based on my search behaviors and my kind of basic age and category. And then it will use that information to push not only the right ads to me as a consumer, but also the right ads in the way that I'm likely to consume them and engage with them.
Yeah, so things like you have to bear in mind, there is this thing called the cookies. We are moving into the cookie-less world. So based on European Union legislations and many things, so the cookies are fading away. And that was basically how we tag you individually as a human. So now Google has developed something called the flock, which they categorize you on a group of people with similar interests to you. So not to be too invasive individually. So that's what they claim they're doing. Obviously, we just never know what happens inside. The reality is that even if we're transitioning out from cookie world, then we still see that this is happening. Like we've got a couple of good ways to target you, and mostly now with AI interactions. So that's just what it is. But yeah, basically Google has a lot of information about you based on all the platforms that they use.
Yeah, it's quite funny. I don't know if this is something that you'd know, and I'm not sure if this is just coincidence, but there've been times where I've been having a conversation with somebody around a certain subject or a certain brand or a certain product. And within a few hours, that brand or product is starting to appear in my news feed on social media, in Google searches. How do they do that? Or is it just coincidence?
No, it's not coincidence. So there is Google Voice that was activated probably in your phones or things like that. So there's a couple of services that they keep the audio on in the phones, but obviously this is something that's really public, but it is a reality for everyone. Like with you talk into your phone about a subject, and you're going to get ads shown in front of you. It is a reality, yes.
It's crazy, isn't it? And I mean, it's kind of frightening in a way as a consumer, but then I guess, you know, from a brand's perspective, it's obviously great news because you can really get insight into how or what I'm interested in. And whilst it feels a little bit invasive as a consumer, I guess really the reality is I'm not going to be bombarded with stuff that I'm just not kind of interested in.
Yes. So, and the other thing that happens is, for example, in social media, so the people that you interact more with on social media, you're going to start getting ads from things that person usually likes. It doesn't rely entirely on your data, but also in your clusters and the people closest to you. For example, if you share a Wi-Fi network with your wife, for example, you would see that eventually, and you like a lot of, it happens to one of my best friends. So he was looking at a couple of flights to Japan, and then his wife said, like, I don't know why I get a lot of publicity now about Japan. I never looked for that. And it was basically that they just share a lot of information with themselves, and also they share the same Wi-Fi. So there's lots of things that they haven't been officialized as this is what happens, but we've seen a lot of patterns, and we can't just deny this kind of things. It's like, yeah, we can't confirm it, but it's a reality that this kind of things happen. And yes.
Crazy. That is crazy. So from Google's perspective, they're going to be looking at it thinking, well, if these people are sharing a Wi-Fi connection a lot, they're going to be very kind of closely entwined, whether they're housemates or part of a family. And then I guess it's like, if we target everybody in that family with something that one particular person is interested in, then it's, you know, it's almost like the, you know, gifting world, isn't it? Like, you know, oh, that's come up. That's funny because so-and-so was talking about that the other day, and it's going to prompt a response.
Yeah.
It's crazy clever. And yeah, I can't work out whether it's a good thing or a bad thing for the consumer. I mean, it's obviously a great thing for the advertiser because we're getting really kind of strong targeted results. I wonder how long is it going to be? I don't know if you've got an opinion on this, but how long do you think it's going to be before the consumer, the person that sits on social media, just gets like over consumed with ads?
It's already happening, but we've got no alternative. So people didn't have anywhere else to go. So for example, when TikTok was launched, it was not full with ads. So people transitioned massively to TikTok. And now TikTok is massively filled with ads. So we don't have an alternative to that. You see that YouTube is the only platform that people use for video consumption, like long footage. And if you watch it in the TV or in a smart gadget, you see how many ads you're getting now. You're getting about like same or more that you get on TV. So it is just what it is. So we are oversaturated. If you look at case studies like Japan, for example, I read the other day a psychological explanation about why the ads on Japan are so crazy. Because you see, I don't know, a teddy bear that is dancing with punk rock attire or something like that, or something. And they said it's not because they like that kind of content. It's that a Japanese person for years, when they go outside, they are on average, I think it was like 9,000 ads that they see a day.
Oh, jeez.
Because in the trains, in the street, I can't remember, don't quote me on that, but it was like a crazy number. So they said they fight for the attention of consumers. So the way they do it is that. So we've got a case in front of us, like what could happen potentially when people just have too many of them. Basically, the ads are going to change a little bit. And you see it now in the UK. In the UK, we've got now, I don't know, animals advertising phones, animals advertising insurance. So things that before we was like, it's just crazy. But we are transitioning eventually to something like this.
I've always wondered, like, especially when you see reasonably big brands that churn out awful advertisements, really, you know, kind of cheesy ads. And I've always wondered why, but I guess that answers the question, doesn't it? Because people are going to remember it.
Yep.
Even if they remember it for a bad reason, they're going to remember it. And I guess from an advertising perspective, that's a great thing.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what it is.
Unbelievable. So with all this in mind, what do you see coming as like the next level of advertising? Where do you kind of see advertising in such a saturated space? How do you capture that attention?
I think it depends on the platform. I think we're all waiting for AI to start selling ads and the way that they're going to do it. We know that, for example, Gemini has integrated a couple of them on shopping on Google precisely. So when you search for something, so first there's a change of patterns of how people are searching now. Because before we used to search on Google, for example, for things like best headphones 2025. And now people is looking for headphones are hurting me, give me headache. What should I buy or things like that. So it is a little bit more complex the way that people is looking for products now. So based on that, AI is generating a prompt and suggesting some products to them. So that's what's happening now. But we still have to see, for example, where ChatGPT is going to stand by when it comes to monetization, because eventually it's going to be some sort of ads on it. So people is just waiting sort of where it lands in. And to be honest, AI, for example, has so much power that, for example, in Google, at least you had the option to compare things out. While in ChatGPT, he's going to give you an answer and that's it. So whatever the answer is going to be, if it's an ad, you just take it for granted and you ended up just buying that product because we take it for truth. So maybe the cost per click is going to be a lot more higher, but then the engagement is going to be higher too. Maybe their return policies are going to be higher as well, because if people buy something without them being like properly informed, we're going to see more people returning products. So people have to be a little bit more flexible with that. But I think it's going to turn into something like this. But we need a lot more delivery systems. We need a little bit more flexibility in advertisers to return products, but also to cope with a bigger demand and need a bigger budget, basically. That's the transition. Like the more we wait, it's a reality. In Google, for example, every single year, as we see inflation on every product in the market, the cost per click on Google is increasing, on Meta is increasing, on Amazon is increasing. So it's just natural for that. So the best thing you can do is act now, that it's a little bit early still. Just create some sort of audiences before we transition to something like this, because we do need that data already created for the time where AI is going to take over ads, but we don't know. So yeah, that would be where I think things are going to be landing, probably that.
It's going to be a huge change, isn't it? To be honest, because at the moment when you basically ask Google something and it just gives you a bunch of options, whereas now we're looking at like really kind of specifically targeted answers, basically, aren't we? In ChatGPT, for example, like the way I engage with ChatGPT is way different to the way I engage with Google, because I understand that ChatGPT is going to give me an answer, whereas Google, is going to give me options. It's going to give me a lot of different options, and the majority of those are sponsored. I guess my question will obviously only be your opinion, because I don't think we'll have an answer on this yet. How do you think it's going to work if we start to ask ChatGPT a specific question, like what is the top rated set of headphones in the UK in 2025? How can that be advertised? Because obviously ChatGPT is going to want to give the correct answer by scraping the information, which I'm sure it could do. But how could that be advertised against? Like, how do you see that working?
I think it's going to be alternatives for that. So maybe it's going to give you the result in here and maybe some ads in the right hand side, or it's going to give you, as Google is doing with search, so some results at the beginning with sponsor ads and then a couple of results at the end. We don't know how it's going to interact. Like that beats me completely. I haven't thought about it, but I think it's going to be a mix between them. If you ask ChatGPT now, what is the best app to do certain things, like edit a photo, I found that they suggested me a couple of apps that they are really bad rated on the Play Store, for example. So it's not perfect yet. Obviously, we are relying more on ChatGPT than we should right now. But again, I think it's going to be more sophisticated with time. And don't get me wrong, but Gemini, for example, with Google, is doing a great job, is advancing so much. It's just ChatGPT was the first one in the market, and it did it so well. But if you look at other languages, like the one from Gemini, they're producing with VO3, for example, excellent video content. The responses from Gemini are quite impressive as well. So I don't think the search battle is lost against ChatGPT. So I think we need to wait until one of them starts doing things a little bit better. And I think Google is hitting hard first with the ads incorporating shopping on the results, but we'll see.
Yeah. It's crazy, isn't it? Like these, how much this landscape is going to change over the next kind of year or two. Are you excited about it, or are you concerned about it?
I'm neither, because I just accept it. I think, for example, it's the same for the cookies and everything back in the day, that people was really concerned about the privacy and everything. I said, listen, you just need to be careful. You just need to be informed. And if you fear about any of those things, just be informed. And there is always options. You can always opt out of things. One friend of mine is from Germany, and he always says, thanks humanity that the European Union existed for those reasons, because they are so strict with the legislation that they never allow things to go massively wild on certain things. Obviously, that's something really political from him, but it is true that since there's always going to be the European Union, they're always going to try to slow things down in that sense. It's going to be like the filter for those things. It happened the same with the Google policy of cookies. It happened the same with the iOS updates of Apple. I'm not concerned. I'm not worried. I'm not really excited. I think it's just I'm looking forward to the next change, because I don't fully understand it now, but I'm trying to learn every day more about it. And I'm sure exciting times are going to come our way as advertisers real soon.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, personally, I think I'm quite excited by it all. I think, it is a big change. It is a new world. But, look at the opportunities opened up by things like the internet that were a huge thing back in the kind of late 80s, early 90s, I guess. But, this has been a game changer in the way that we work and the way that we advertise and all the rest of it. And yeah, I kind of, try and see the positives of most things. And I'm, personally, I think going to give us all a wonderful opportunity to kind of, really kind of work alongside AI and, get it to help us to, to create more opportunities. So yeah, fingers crossed. And just a last parting piece of advice from you, Caesar, what would you say to brands or people in the advertising space that are kind of fearful of this and want to get to understand it better? Like, what can they start to do now that's going to give them a bit of a head start for when this all comes into play?
So I think the first thing I would recommend them is, if you don't have a website, try something like Shopify. So invest in a thing that works, that it is really good and really easy for you to use. And second, these platforms gives you the opportunity to integrate with Google Ads to make the tracking automatic for you. So there is loads of benefits from it that are going to make your journey a lot smoother. And then I think probably the last thing is what I mentioned at the beginning. Just give it a go. Like, set aside a budget, experiment out with a search campaign. The only thing it's going to do is going to get you some sales, and you will be in a position to compare it with your performance on Amazon. And then you will see, okay, on Amazon, I have to pay obviously all the fees to Amazon plus all the cost per click, which is insanely high in here. Well, in this one, I'm getting a couple of sales, a lower cost per conversion, and then collecting, for example, emails. So that's another big benefit. So when you sell on your website, you're collecting all the emails from all your Amazon buyers, all your product buyers. And then you can redo like email marketing campaigns or remarketing campaigns. For example, if you sell phone cases, then you launch a new phone case line, which is waterproof. You can send it over to people who actually purchased from you in the past. So there is all the associated benefits from it. I think the lifetime cycle of the client is going to be longer. That's a couple of things. So just try it out. Start today. That's probably the first advice that I will give you.
Awesome advice. And yeah, thanks again, Caesar, for joining us. Yeah, I'm actually really kind of looking forward to, as we get more and more information about, how AI is going to affect advertising. It's going to be really good to kind of chat those things through with you. And, as and when things come up, we can really kind of discuss it and kind of talk about it. So just to help everybody get kind of ahead of the curve with it all, I guess. But yeah, really excited about that. And yeah, really great of you to kind of join me again. I know you're a super busy guy, but it's always a great conversation and always a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks ever so much, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, we'll see you. Thank you, and you take care.
Thanks, Caesar. Cheers, bye.
Cheers.